Hey, how do you do, Buckaroos, and how the heck are you? I am the Whiskey Whisperer for this particular At the Pub. And joining me at the pub is distillery manager at Tiakida and local musician Brandon Moore. Hey, Brandon, what's going on, man?
Hi, Tom. How's it going?
Hey, so what are you drinking at the pub today, sir?
So what I'm drinking is it's just a whiskey, and it's a whiskey that I made years ago.
Really?
Yeah. So during distillation and when you're working a distillery, you got your bench and you've got your area that you do all your testing and your hydrometer readings and everything in that. And so a lot of times, like any desk, they get cluttered. And so I might have, all these various sample bottles of what we were making, what we were distilling. And, we pulled off that new distillate, or we pulled that out of that aged barrel, or whatever it is. And a lot of times it sat there for so long, I don't even know where that barrel went. It might have been gone already, but I need to clean my office. And so when I was distilling at Copper Run and working down there, I kept a 25-gallon barrel that I'd just dump all of those things into. If I had that bottle, I just clean off my desk and all the whiskey went into this one barrel. And so that barrel is in my garage, and I just pull from it for occasions such as this, So,
hey, you need a guest sipper. You let me know.
I will. So it's mainly we made mainly bourbons and rum, but none of the rum went in that. So it's pretty much all we made. Our mash bill was 60 corn, 20 wheat, and barley, and so it's pretty much that bourbon,
I didn't realize that you distilled for Copper Run, I guess.
I did. I got down there in 2011. Jim hadn't been open very long, and I actually went down there to build a deck, and I was a carpenter at the time.
That's funny.
And I just fell in love with the place. I told him when I got done with the deck, I'm not leaving. You got to find something for me to do. And so he put me behind the bar for a while, and I was a terrible bartender. I mean, I can talk, but I was just terrible at it. And so it just happened that he was needing some help in the distillery at the time. So I kind of inched my way down there, and then eventually just kept going. And then eventually he left, and I stayed on and ran that distillery for quite a while. I guess I was there 10 years, I think, 10 or 11 years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, but now, so the transition, how long have you been with Tiakida now?
The 7th of this month was my 2nd year anniversary.
Really? Okay. So it's relatively new. The company had bought out a previous distillery, right?
Correct. Missouri Spirits was there. Yep.
Yeah. So I typically, I don't know why, I only have one Tiakida product in the house. Typically, I have like 6 or 7.
Was that Oracle?
But I'm down to one. Is the Oracle. So I'm going to ask you a question here. And I'm probably going to do something that's going to make you cringe. But so Oracle, I love this whiskey. It's a 5-year-old whiskey, right?
Correct. They're just under 5 years when we pulled that. Yeah.
And this one is finished in the port barrels. Now, I will tell you that I have drank this neat mostly, but I did make an old-fashioned out of it to have with you here.
They make great old-fashioned.
Okay, I didn't know if that made you cringe. I used it as an old-fashioned.
No, I'm honestly, I love how a lot of people look at that, and I like to look at it as I don't even mind if you put soda in there, as long as you're drinking the spirit.
That's right. Hey, if you pay for it, see, here's my thing on those lines. If you bought the thing, make it, do anything you want with it. But see, here's my exception to that. If I'm over at somebody's house and they offer me a liquor a specific way, I think you have to drink it that way.
Yeah.
I think it's rude to take somebody's good liquor and then put soda pop in it.
I agree with that. That's a good amendment to the rule. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do have my glass, so I got the proper glass.
Oh, nice.
So here's what I did with this one. I've got 2 ounces of the Oracle, and I've got a ½ ounce of my homemade simple syrup that I make with raw sugar. So it's a raw sugar simple syrup, a ½ ounce, and then of course the orange and the cherry garnish.
Gotcha. That's wonderful. Cheers.
Now, sometimes I fancy it up. I like to, but I didn't. So my herbs aren't working like that. I want them to, because I was going to make a lavender simple syrup, but my lavender wasn't working this year. So
wonderful.
So anyway, here's to you, sláinte, or tiakida.
So do you? Are you a? Do you prefer Manhattans or do you prefer old fashions over Manhattans?
Honestly, I do prefer a Manhattan, but I will say, for the most part, for me, a Manhattan is a fall winter cocktail. You know what I mean?
No,
because it's more comforting. For me, a Manhattan's more comforting, while an old fashioned is more refreshing. I like a whiskey sour too. I like a whiskey sour during this time of the year.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So I want to ask you that same question though. With old fashions being more trendy, what are your thoughts on both cocktails?
I'm a 100% Manhattan guy, and in fact, I like them all year round. And I a lot of times, you order them at a bar or restaurant, and the response 9 times out of 10 is no, but I can make you an old fashioned.
Yeah,
which is like. It's like night and day almost, They both have whiskey in them.
You're only swapping out one ingredient, right?
That's right. So I just like I prefer a Manhattan, just having the fewer ingredients, And,
I did forget to tell you that I use cherry bitters. I forgot to mention my bitters, but yeah, I do prefer a Manhattan. I tell you what I've done lately, and again, I don't know if you're going to like this or not, but I like to experiment with cocktails. So I've been playing around with replacing the sweet vermouth with different things, and I've used cream sherry, and I've also used port wine upon occasion, just taking out the sweet vermouth and using that cream sherry, and for me, I like that substitution.
I love that. Last summer, I never thought about doing that. And then last summer, I was somewhere out on the road with Jalopy, and then we stopped in for a cocktail somewhere, getting ready for a show, and they didn't have sweet vermouth. They didn't have the ingredients to make me a Manhattan. Excuse me. And the lady, she's like, "Well, let me experiment," and she used port and a couple of, and then that just opened my mind. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, why
doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really neat.
It changes the drink, but it is good.
That's right. And I mean, I'm not used to any one Manhattan anyway, so I love the variety. So that's great.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
So I like to tell folks that a lot of folks think you have to make things a specific way, and I tell people these cocktail recipes were not handed down from God to Moses on stone tablets. You can do anything you want with them. Make it yours.
That's it. And the more you talk to mixologists and things like, bartenders and such, how many bartenders have had to substitute right there on the spot because something's out. It's late, and so, nothing's set in stone, I don't think either. Yeah.
What I find interesting about the Tiakida spirit line is, for me, I'm a whiskey guy. So I gravitated right to the whiskey. The Storyteller collection, I've had the double barrel rye and the rum. Oh my gosh, those things are insane. But you guys are also known for your gin, right?
So our gin, so my background is, once I started down there with Jim at Copper Run, he's an old brewer from San Francisco. And so he really got to introduce me to some great people in the distilling and brewing industry. And so we got to learn and do a lot in a 10-year period, but it was all bourbon and grain related distillation and fermentation. And so when I got to Tiakida, I mean, man, like right off the bat, they wanted to do a grappa. So I literally walked in the door, being my first thing I distilled there was a grappa. They had just got done getting the pressings from the grape, and we started fermenting. And I'm literally Googling, how do you distill a grappa? Like diving deep into understanding that, And so I've got to learn a lot of things. One of them is gin. And so we've really taken a big, deep dive with our gins. And we followed a recipe for our Sauternes barrel aged gin, the Songbird Goldfinch, and
that one's special. I like that one.
I do too, because I like gins that have a little bit of sweetness of some sort, maybe a little touch of honey or vanilla or something that helps balance those botanicals. And so, we did doing the Sauternes barrel, it gives it that nice sweet touch. And so they kind of already had that recipe that they gave a try and then barrel aged it. We've tweaked it a little bit since I've been there. But then we've been working on for over a year our Songbird Original Dry. And I tell you what, Tom, we did, I bet 15 different recipe batches to try to find the one we liked. We were purchasing and trying every gin we could get our hands on and figuring out what we liked and kind of making our way towards it. And then finally we decided we found the botanical batch mix that we liked. And then we probably did another half a dozen to a dozen trial batches on those before we landed on that recipe. And so we really worked hard to get to that recipe for the original dry Songbird.
That's why, and I like the barrel influence.
I do too. I really do. And we just came out with our third Songbird, which our good friend Tom Rock at Leaky Roof Meadery brought us a mead barrel.
Okay.
Yep. So we put some gin in it and aged it for about 6 months and then rested it, and then added just about, I want to say it was under 1% or 1% of honey to it. It was a small amount of honey, just a little touch of honey. And yeah, it's just wonderful too. It's really.
I got a comment here from Dean I'm going to post real quick. Two experts on the subject.
Uh-oh.
He says, well, Dean, I'm going to correct you slightly. I'm an enthusiast. Brandon's the expert. I'm just the guy that likes to drink a lot of it.
Same. That's all I am. That's it. And then they pay me for it.
See, how amazing is that?
Oh, I agree. I definitely feel blessed to be into what I do. I know it's for me, it's I know a lot of people struggle with alcohol, and so it's a double-edged sword. But overall, I think we're doing good work. The team that I'm surrounded by is just absolutely amazing, and we really all care about it, and we're really trying to do our best work, and do our best job.
So I know you're working on a new distillery area there in Rogersville, right?
Yep.
So when do you anticipate that going up?
So the Rogersville one will be pretty quick, I think, or quicker than the Willard one. The Willard one is sitting as a kind of a storage building currently. It's just to that point. Yeah. So they have a lot of work to do on that. The Rogersville being already a working bar, the distillery, they're a lot further along. We are doing some construction changes, but currently we're in the waiting game of once the licensing kicks in, then I'll be able to go out there and start small batches.
Awesome.
So we're going to do distillation in the Rogersville and more beer related in the Willard satellite. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So currently, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
So currently we're under construction in 3 places because we
got a lot going on, man.
We do. We're going out towards the cellar. The cellar venue shut down, and so we're headed towards that as our new distillery space. I was right behind it, and so I'm
looking forward to that one too. So the Rogersville location, will that be more like your R&D location?
Yes, yeah. So there's technically they say it's a 53-gallon pot with the headspace in it. It's more like a 45. We'll take a small column to put on it, and then yeah, we'll be able to do R&D. We'll be able to do weird batches. I told Brian just the other day, my boss, Brian Allen, the plant manager, that I want to do a Missouri walnut whiskey. He just shook his head. He said,
yeah, okay, I'm in.
With those tannins, he said.
Oh, I'm in. I'm all in. Yeah,
I am too. I at least want to try it.
Well,
so we'll be able to try different things and just do smaller batches and just really have some fun with it. And we also, I really want to do classes. I want to be able to do classes on a small still where we group up and I warm the still, so when the class starts, distillation starts. And with that still out there, we could get into the heart and be into our first cuts and possibly our second cuts during a class where we're talking about distillation, to where we can make little batches of whiskey based on the class's grain bill and then put it in small barrels. I really want to do that. I think it's a great thing to do. It's a great hobby. It's a great thing to talk about. I love the process. So it'd be a fun thing to do.
I think that'll go over well. Yeah, that's a great idea, man. I know there's a lot of interest in this area as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. A lot of history in this area.
Yeah. Not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out of curiosity, you mentioned grappa earlier, and when that first came out, I had to ask somebody else at the time that was there what it was, because I had no idea. I mean, I'm a guy that's been around liquor my whole life. I had no idea what grappa was. How would you explain that to someone that doesn't know what grappa is?
So the interesting thing about grappa, when you start looking into the history, that's the other thing about everything that Tiakada wants to do. And coming from a lot of places, it's coming from Brian, my direct boss, the plant manager, head brewer and plant manager. With the brandies and things, we look into the history and the background. And so that's why I think they really wanted to do a grappa. And the history of it comes from Italy and the main wine regions. And so it's a distillate made from the pressings of the wine. So when they press the wine, then what they're going to scrap, traditionally, I think it was more from the peasants and the poorer folks of those regions, because they would take those pressings that were going into nice wines and try to get something else out of it. So there's a lot left in there. There's a lot of residual sugars. There's really deep notes from the tannins, because you get the pressings, you get the seeds, the stems, the skins. And so then you repitch yeast and you re-ferment on those. You add water and yeast and re-ferment those pressings. So they've already made a wine. That's already been done. And now we're going to make a more tannin-based wine to ferment and distill. So technically it's brandy because it's made from fruit, but
it's not aged, right?
Say again?
It's not aged. It's not aged in a barrel.
Correct. All the grappa that I'm aware of is white. It's from the.
Yeah, that's all I've seen. Yeah. So how do you drink it? I mean, you drink it chilled, you drink it warm, you do shots, you make cocktails out of it. How do you drink it, or what's the recommended way to drink it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
So my understanding. So for us it was really hard because we only had one batch, and we only had one batch of fermentation, and so basically we're hitting a target with our distillation that was really hard to do. They wanted, and so me not having done, that was my first batch, and I did one other since then, maybe two. It was difficult. The literature I was reading was really wide heart, wide cuts, basically taking everything. And so it gives for a really wide flavor of, congeners get through there, good and bad, and so a lot of people use the spirit in cocktails. I went over and talked to Tony over at Avanzari, and he gave me all kinds. He was throwing on tonic water like a gin and tonic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, he's putting simple syrup with it. One of the things he did was he made just a straight martini, but took a sugar cube and set it on fire until it sunk in there. And
okay.
There's quite a few applications, really. It's kind of a really versatile spirit. And honestly, all the grappa I've had, it's first, it's heavy tannins. It's heavy. It's heavy on heads and tails. It's heavy esters. It's just a rough spirit, and so you really want to try it with any cocktail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm reading you right, then there's various. How do I say this right? Various degrees of quality.
I think so. That's it. I think so. Yeah. But you don't see much of it. I mean, honestly, I had to. There's only a couple places in town I could even find a bottle of it, and so it's not an easy thing to find, and even we did just a limited run of it, and it's all gone. It got bought up, So.
Really? Oh wow! So it did sell of it. Is that something you want to bring back?
We've definitely talked about it. It's me personally, I'd like another go at it. So I'd like to try again, really. So I'm hoping that we bring it back, and we'll just have to see,
So what products have you noticed that might sell that have been your better sellers, let's say?
So our bourbon lines are definitely our biggest sellers currently. I think our two best sellers are Hinterland. So
that's the maple, right?
That's right. That's our maple.
See that one. Oh man, that's a good whiskey.
It's so good, and we're actually even on we do barrel picks as often as we can with retail outlets. And
I love barrel picks. I'm a sucker for barrel picks.
Me too, and I love that because if I'm assuming your viewers know what a barrel pick is, but if you don't, the retailer comes in, sits down with a handful of barrels, whatever they guide their way to, and then they pick it. And for us, the two that we've done have both been blind. We've said, this is what you got. Like, let's base it on flavor first, and then we'll go from there. And both barrel picks have been barrels we have of Hinterland. And
okay.
Yeah, and that's saying something because, these guys this isn't their first barrel picks, and so they know what they're doing.
Well, I love barrel picks because it's just different from your regular product, right? I mean, you're choosing one barrel as opposed to, blending your flavors together, right? To get to one specific flavor.
That's it, and so there's a couple of ways to go about it. The two we've done so far, just only being in the retail outlet a few months, have been straight. This is the barrel. We don't even filter it. We don't take
really? Wow. Okay.
We don't change the proof at all.
Oh, see, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And currently our bourbons are sourced. We are distilling barrels and putting bourbons back. And so these source barrels are 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. And I just love that. Yeah, that's such a good grain bill because when you finish,
that's a beautiful grain bill. Yeah,
it really is because you get all that pepper from the rye. It's not a full rye, but it makes it so rich, and it really draws out those finishing barrels.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you kind of like a high rye percentage.
Actually, well, I think if I'm gonna put a bourbon or a whiskey in a cocktail, I love the rye. Then you can taste it coming through. But if I'm just sipping on it, I love a good weeded rye. A good weeded bourbon. So
you like that softer, right? So for me, the weeded bourbons, they're a little softer, a little sweeter.
Yeah, they just I just love it. You can just cuddle up to it,
Now, are you doing any weeded bourbons at Teaki Duff?
So far we have not distilled any. There are a couple in a barrel that were there from before me. So we acquired a handful of stuff from Missouri Spirit. And so we are going to release a weeded bourbon pretty soon, but I didn't make it, And so, but currently we have not made any weeded, but we're packing away a bunch of bourbon. And when this new still comes in, we're really going to pack away a bunch of bourbon.
Well, that's all right. Yeah. So I'm an old-fashioned, not old-fashioned as far as drink, but old-fashioned kind of guy. So I do like a traditional bourbon. I love that rye, and I really love a high rye bourbon.
I do too. It's so good. It just tastes like a bourbon, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
And if you're going to use it, for me, if you're going to use a bourbon in a cocktail or a Manhattan old fashioned, I think a high rye bourbon works, or at least a traditional that uses rye, if not a high rye. Because for me, a weeded bourbon is a little bit sweet in old fashioned and a Manhattan.
I agree with that. It just doesn't come through. You just don't get you don't get the bourbon cutting through. Yeah. So
proof. Well, I've had discussions with folks about proof. The Oracle's 92 proof. For me, if I'm making a cocktail, and if I'm making an old fashioned or a Manhattan, I like at least 90 proof going in the cocktail, because I think an 80 proof comes out too watery.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, that's why I love those barrel picks, because man,
that's my next question. What's your thoughts on cask strength? You like those big barrel picks, or do you like the cask strength bourbon?
I do. Me personally, just because I drink a lot of bourbon, and it just it just seems to cut through better, and I really like it that way.
Yeah, I do too. Every once in a while I get surprised. I'll have a bourbon at anywhere between 114 and 120, and I'll take a drink and say, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, there's how does a bourbon at that proof go down that easy? How do they do that?
Yeah. There's so many, that's the interesting thing that's what I love about distillation. When people talk about recipes, like your recipe, if you and I sit down or a whole room of 30 of us sat down and made a 75-21-4 bourbon, they would all be different because of the cuts, but they would also be different because of what barrel we aged it in, where that barrel set in the room. If it's set high up in the room, is the room more ventilated? There's so many factors beyond just recipe. That's what, so I there's so many aspects to this, and that's one of the things I just love.
That's nice. I want to say real quick that Jason Cleveland just posted, "Good afternoon, gentlemen." He must be referring to you. Up there, I guess I'm almost like asking you to pick a favorite child. But of the products that you have, do you have a favorite?
Oh yeah. My favorite, and this might be showing my affinity towards Manhattans, but I love our double barrel PX rye. Oh,
see, I love that one too. That one was so I went through a bottle. It's typically a bottle. I've had this Oracle for about 4 months, and I always have more than one bottle on hand, so it's not like I'm drinking slow. But a bottle will typically last me about 6 months, and I think I burned through that bottle of rye in 2 months. I mean,
it's so good.
Oh man, see, that is a perfect Manhattan whiskey.
I agree with that. Yeah, and so that one that is a source rye. I've not made any rye with us yet, and I'm really interested in it because it's a fun beast to make. It's different than making a bourbon, but we rested it in a Pedro Jimenez barrel, a PX sherry barrel, and so
I didn't know that. Okay, wow.
Yeah, and so unlike the Wonderlust, we put in an Oloroso barrel. So we decided on the PX for the rye. Is that the PX?
No, this is the Oracle. Oracle
Nice.
2 ounces needed the Oracle.
Beautiful. So the PX is it's so nice because those are more of those candied fruit, jam.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, those really sweet, but like cotton candy kind of fruit notes come through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they're lighter, and so that with the rye is why we went with that. We thought that would be a good combination, and it really ended up being, and it's become one of our best sellers, and it's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I love that stuff. And I was using that. I was kind of making a version of a Manhattan with that. rise. Oh man,
it's so good for Manhattan. You
it's
just
perfect.
It really does, because you still get the rye that cuts through there, but it's got all that sweetness to it that goes with the vermouth. And yeah, actually, we just filled up some. Really curious about this. Just got in some finishing barrels this week. We got another maple, so we're going to keep Hinterland going, of course. But we got a vanilla barrel.
Oh wow!
It was a bourbon barrel that had vanilla extract put in it. This is my first vanilla barrel.
That'll be nice. All right.
A Grand Marnier barrel and
Grand Marnier barrel. Oh,
yeah, so
that'll be interesting. So I got to ask, what do you want to put in that Grand Marnier barrel?
So what we did was we put the same thing in all 4 of the barrels I got. I got a maple, a vanilla, a Grand Marnier, and a a sweet vermouth.
Really?
Yes. And
my goodness.
We put our Lost Hollow, basically. We put a little past 4 year, 75, 21, 4 grain bill into all 4 of them. And we don't know what we're going to do. We just have to see what's going to happen with the flavors. But
I'm curious what that Grand Marnier does to that bourbon. I really am. Oh man. If you need a guest taster for that one, you give me a holler. Oh man.
It smells so good.
With that orange, that'll be perfect. That'd be a perfect holiday bourbon.
That's what I'm thinking too. We do have our storyteller series where we lay out 3, and we might use. What we'll probably do is do a limited release of those and pick 3 barrels and do that. But I also want my hand at just trying to blend the vanilla, the Grand Marnier, and the vermouth, and see what I can come up with, just to see if it. We could be making a Manhattan in a bottle here.
That's what I was just going to say. Yeah, you got a Manhattan in a bottle going on there with all that. Oh, that would be gorgeous.
It could be really neat. Yeah.
Oh, you got me all excited now, man.
Very
that's incredible.
Yeah. So we'll see.
So, how long do you want those spirits to sit in that barrel?
So, at least 3 months. Now the vanilla, I'm going to start checking after like 3 weeks, because I'm worried that it's going to be too much. But the maples, we've gone anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And just from people trying them, we're finding that, of course, the later we go, the more they like it. So the Grand Marnier, I'll probably start checking after about 1.5 to 2 months. And the sweet vermouth, I'll probably start checking after about a month. And to be quite honest, Tom, I have no idea.
So so do you have something in your mind, what flavor profile you're looking for?
No, I don't. And actually, which is great.
You just know when you taste it, right?
That's right. And I'm looking for, in case it goes too far, that's what I'm looking for. I don't want it to get too. Well, the beauty of finishing barrels is, as long as you get a good finishing barrel that is not too sulfury, they different companies will use different things to try to help them stay fresh by sulfur tabs and things like that. And so as long as it doesn't get too ripe, so to speak, in different ways, and the barrel is good, then it's already been, the bulk of these second finishing barrels is the bulk of them, the too much vanilla, too much tannin, too much of the things that we don't want have already been exhausted, because a lot of these barrels are 7 to 14-year-old bourbon barrels. Then they went on to be something else. And so the bad stuff that could usually happen with too much age is already taken care of. And so,
Gotcha.
So that's the only thing I worry about is so if it isn't taken care of, we want that Grand Marnier, that citrus and all that stuff, but we don't want too many barrel tannins. And so we just keep an eye out for it. Yeah.
So how frequently are you checking it to make sure it's where you want it to be?
Depending on the barrel. So, those maples we've got kind of an understanding about. So we'll go 3, 4, 5 months checking them after 3 months. The other guys, I'll probably start checking a month and a half, 2 months.
Really? Okay. So you're checking them pretty often.
Yeah. But we also have, currently have a great brandy barrel aging. We have multiple beer barrels aging that were bourbon barrels that Brian put beer in, and I have them, and so we're already dealing with it already, multiple barrels from multiple things. And we're just, you kind of check in on them, look at them, make sure they're not getting the age and the darkness is already usually taken out of those barrels after 1 or 2 uses. And so it's really about that flavor profile that we don't go too far. But that's the thing it's just the notes, it's about the notes. It's not like you're blending in Grand Marnier, so it's always slight and it's light.
Yeah. You just want that little bit. I just had that kick to know it was in there. Yeah. Well, we were taking me to another question. You were talking about Brian. So I've noticed a lot of distillers, small distillers, will get with a brewery to get a stout cask. So have you thought about doing a stout cask whiskey?
So I currently have 2 barrels, 1 rye, 1 bourbon of his Sorry Night.
Oh, you do? I didn't know that. Okay.
I do. And what's funny is everybody that I've had try it is just blown away by it. And what the funny thing is both barrel picks, we're going to go with those because they're so good, but they're a little weird. They're distinctive. And so I think we're going to have better luck. They ended up going towards the hinterland because it's a crowd favorite, but excuse me. Thank you. The beer barrel, the Sorry Night ones are a crowd favorite, and so we're going to release those pretty soon.
Okay, you keep me posted on that because I want a bottle as soon as it comes off the line.
Now this is something we can nerd out on also. Now the one thing I got to do, speaking of beer, this is the one of the biggest reasons that drew me into the job offer with these guys was we're connected to a brewery. And so one of the wonderful things is we're leaning into a single malt. I personally think
yes.
By seeing the current trends in the industry, this is the most leading up and coming spirit. And it is for a bunch of reasons. Single malt, first off, the single malt category is something that I think is misunderstood. People think that's a single malt. It's not. It's a single distillery. And so you can really get some amazing things by adding malts and bringing these things together. And malts distill in all the good ways. They come off at the beginning. They have high esters at the beginning for fermentation, but they're malt based, so they have richness. And so we're really leaning into that. And
I'm looking forward to that. I love single malts, and I've really been getting into the American single malts I could find. I found one back around St. Patrick's Day from Restless Spirits out of Kansas City. They've got this whiskey called it's a double barrel single malt, American single malt called Gully Town. Have you had that one?
Great label, great flavor.
See, that's a great whiskey, is it not?
It checks all the boxes.
It does. Okay, good. Yes. I'm glad somebody that knows whiskeys on the same page. Yeah, man, I love that whiskey.
Yes, I do too. I love that whiskey. And so, going back to the leaning into the brewery side of things, I got introduced my first year of distilling with Copper Run. Mothers had a bunch of beer they were going to dump. Finished beer. It was their summer shandy. And so I distilled it. We made like 3 or 4 barrels of it. And the hops are already in there. And those hops come over with no bitterness. They're all it's just amazing. They're all sweet, they're fruity, they're candied. It's crazy. And so we've really been leaning into I've been putting a bunch away in the barrel, and I'm trying to get more as they can bring me beer. And
that's nice. That's great.
It really is. And so we've got barrels that are finished beers. We're getting ready to release a beer schnapps which is a white, unaged green ghost that I distilled.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to try that so bad.
It's 80 proof. It's already in the bottle. We're setting up a release date right now. And
man, I'm gonna put some money away. I see.
Yeah, and these American single malts. So the beauty about American single malt, and so what I really want to dig into is the fact that, so if you distill a beer and you have 100% finished beer, it has a lot of hops. Those hops come over as fruit, so they take over, and they're present, and they're forward, and they're the bulk of it. So the American single malts we're leaning into are very malty. They the brewers are just brewing them. They're bringing them to me. Then we distill them on our side, Skippy and I. And but I really want to lean into the regenerated yeast that has all those hops still connected to it. So the esters are already really high in these fermentations. And so when we get them, they're ester forward. And so you combine ester fruitiness, the tropical fruits, with the maltiness, with a little twinge of hops. These are really special American single malt. These are different, and I'm really excited about them.
Oh man! So how soon do you think you might have those on the market?
Those won't be till next year.
Next year, okay.
Yeah, but we're designing bottles and labels and going through, so it could be as early as the later part of this year, but it'll probably be early in the next year. Oh, and we got to get enough in the barrel to to start the process. Yeah,
those would be perfect for Christmas time.
I agree with that. Whiskey season. Yeah.
Yeah, that is whiskey season, definitely. Oh, but man, I didn't realize you had all that going on. That is incredible. Oh, I'm so excited now, man. That's incredible.
Honestly, Tom, this is crazy. I went from Copper Run had 5 SKUs, and we were kind of just did what we did. I get here, I counted just last week 29 active SKUs with all of our cordials,
oh my good Lord,
all of our gins, all of our private labels, everything. And we're growing, and also we have 3 buildings under construction.
Yeah. So how soon will the Tiakida portion next to Springfield Brewing Company, when might that be open?
Okay, so I'm excited to announce that so when the Springfield Brewery first started, they were the Mueller Corporation.
Yes, yeah.
Started it. And so they it was a showpiece for their equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went a few years like that. Then they kind of started leaning into Springfield Brewing Company, and then they started changing owners. A group of people bought out the Muellers, and then so over the years they've landed on they're now one owner, the Chanters, and so they own it now. They're who bought Missouri Spirits, and so I'm super happy to announce, after all the bids I got, after coming in and learning that they wanted a still, we put our heads to it, figured out the still we wanted, and then started getting bids. And I got about 12 to 15 bids from the still companies all over the world, from Vendome to local ones just down the road. And then I found out that Clayton and John came over from Mueller to talk about some things, and found out that they are now building stills. And so we bought a Mueller still, and we are having it custom built currently. And
no kidding. Oh my goodness.
It's
man.
It's a 250 gallon pot. You can go from the pot. You can just pot distill. You can go to a condenser. To a column. It's a 5-plate column, but we can also add a gin still to it. So we can do all whiskeys, all bourbons, brandies, gins, anything, grappa, anything we want.
Oh God! Oh, that's insane.
Yeah, and so it's currently being built. Yeah, and so
that's turned into quite an operation, then, man.
It is crazy. It's honestly, it's
just man.
And so it's being built. We'll probably see it in our distillery in September. More like November, October. And so then we'll have a few things left to put in place. So we'll be opening the distillery side to the public, hopefully sometime in the winter of this year.
Oh, really? So at the end of this year, we should see that open?
Yeah.
Right about, say, Black Friday-ish?
I'm hoping so, because that, like we said, that's whiskey season.
Yeah,
that's bourbon season.
It is, yeah. That's when I load up on the good beer and the good whiskey to take me through the holidays, man.
All the Oktoberfest beers out, and
that's right. I grew up Catholic, so you can't go through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's without a good supply of alcohol.
Definitely not. That's right.
Oh, man, that sounds incredible. So with all that going on, though, I mean, wow, man, that's quite extensive.
It really is. I mean, we've.
You got 3 buildings under construction right now. Then,
if we didn't have the crew we have, we wouldn't be doing all this. Honestly, with Alan's leadership, he's by far. I mean, he's just incredible. He just gets it. He understands people. He understands what we're doing. Kyle Johnson, who runs everything at the brewery, is just, these 2 individuals are just, I can't even say enough about them. They're why we're doing all this. Then
we got great folks out there. That's for damn sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Kat Wellever, she draws those labels with pencils.
I didn't know that.
I don't even know how. I want to express that more. That blows my mind. That these labels are hand drawn.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so Andrew Steyer, he is my main distiller. It's me and him doing everything at the distillery. We're getting ready for Stratford or the Rogersville. I'm sorry, Rogersville. We're getting ready for that. We're in construction under there. We're in the construction under the cellar. They're on the beer side, on the Willer side. We've got a lot going on. Yeah,
you've got a lot going on, man. That's incredible. So we ended up talking about whiskey for the most part of this discussion, but I am curious to ask you. I know you've got several musical projects going on.
I do, and so I've been a musician since I was 17. I started playing out in bars, and so yeah, I have. I'm one of those musicians that I have a lot of bands that are really truly my heart, and they're all my families. And then I also do a lot of just hired work. I'll take any gig that I can handle, really, and if I can play the instrument, I'll take the gig, So that keeps me pretty busy also.
Well, I tell you what, I've heard you play at several venues around town, and I was telling you just before we started, Project Jalopy, which has a lot of interesting elements. I hear a lot of jazz in there, a lot of progressive rock, even some country. So you're a guy I would have a hard time putting in one particular musical box.
I would agree with that, because there's days where, like, I'll spend a weekend getting hired for multiple instruments and multiple genres. I'll go from one, like, a rock gig to a bluegrass gig or a country gig or whatever I can take, and it's a lot of fun. In Jalopy, John Anderson, the drummer of that band, he plays with the Hillbenders and a whole collection of different people over the area. And I put out a record in 2017, and he helped me with it on the drums. And him and I played in a band called Barefoot Revolution.
Okay, I think that's where I was thinking I knew you from, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're so old that Barefoot played the grand opening of the Bruco in '97.
Okay. Now, you guys, now correct me if I'm wrong, so my memory's a little faulty, but that band played Cully's quite a bit, did it not?
A lot. We had every Tuesday.
That's where that's where I first saw you. Okay.
Yep, way back in the day. And so John and I got together and put Jalopy together, and we enlisted our good friend Jerry Twyford on bass and our good friend Kelly Brown from the Ozark Mountain Daredevils. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, and so that band has been a lot of fun, and we got to record a great album that we just released, and we still do dates. John's got a bit of a he took a fall, and so we're on some downtime right now, and he's thankfully on the mend, and so we're gonna get back out there and keep playing. But we've done a lot of tour dates, and
nice.
We just love that band.
I was really impressed when I was listening to this afternoon. There were several songs that I had to play over and over again because I couldn't quite get a handle on those bass lines. You mentioned
I know.
I said, what the hell?
He's so good.
I was hearing these like John Entwistle like bass lines,
It's so funny because the other three of us have all these bands and we do all this stuff, but to us, Jerry, the bass player, is our secret weapon. He's the good one of the band.
Oh man! So you play so. Did you have an instrument of choice, or one instrument you maybe feel more at home at than another?
So I it's kind of like picking your favorite Beatles song. It changes. And so my first instrument was the guitar, and so it has my heart. And I've always been passionate towards the guitar, and I've kept up with lessons over the years, and I try to keep up with it the best I can. And but over the years, I've really found that I love the drums. And,
really? Okay.
Yeah, and people let me do that in public, which still baffles me. And then my favorite instrument currently is the mandolin. I've just fallen in love with the mandolin.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So did you play the keyboards at all then?
I do. I've taken quite a few gigs on the piano.
Gotcha. Okay.
I haven't had one of those in years though. But I play keyboards. I think the other instruments I play are the keyboards and bass. That might be it. Yeah, I think that's it. So, not a huge list, but and I don't do any of them really well. I just kind of fake my way along them. So, but enough to get hired.
Well, I'll tell you a story or maybe more of an anecdote that I've learned over the years. Every musician that I've ever talked to that tells you they're wonderful probably isn't. The best musicians, the guys that are going to blow you away, the guys that want to play off how good they are. The fact that you're trying to tell me that you're not very good tells me you're probably rather good at everything.
Oh, well, I tell you what.
My experience over the years anyway.
It's not a bike, that's for sure. You can't walk away from it. It's something I work at a lot and just try to every day touch as many instruments as I can, and it's not easy. And it's not easy juggling a full time job that has passion that honestly I could put 80 hours in a week just there.
Wow.
Rehearsal times and I mean shit, you and I we tried to book this for 3 weeks, maybe a month.
Between your schedule and my schedule, so what the hell? But Tuesday works, man. We'll do Tuesday.
Yeah, and then Tuesday comes, I'm like, fuck,
Oh mercy! But your whole family's musical, though, right?
So, yes, actually. My mom's musical. I am, and then I got that from her. I think it's her fault. My brother was, and then Molly Healy is the mother of my daughter. And, we're not together anymore, but she comes from a very long list of musicians that then somehow we definitely made another musician. My daughter has.
She's got a lot of gigs. I've noticed.
She is definitely working more than I am these days, and it's so neat. In fact, we have a gig this weekend with all three of us. So when Annabelle was born, we had a band called More Healy, Molly and I, and we split apart, and so we didn't play that for years. For 17 years we didn't play together, or 15 years or something, and then Annabelle started playing again, and so we started doing some gigs with Annabelle as More Healy. In fact, we have one this weekend at Time Timber.
Yeah, I saw you had that gig coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's pretty neat to get. I don't play gigs with her mom anymore. We are partners in this parenting, and with my partner Madison, along with Molly, we've raised Annabelle as a family. Excuse me, and so it's cool to get back together and play some of these gigs together. It's really neat to see Annabelle working. I mean, I'm a distiller. I'm a salesman. I'm all these things at work. I'm a musician. I'm all these things. My favorite gig right now is Dad Roadie.
Oh, there you go. That is awesome.
My favorite gig. I love going to her gigs. I love helping her. I love loading a car with her. It's really cool, Tom. I never thought I'd be in this position in life.
It's hard to know when to step back, though, and not, not maybe give too much advice, I guess.
Well, luckily she knows that line and she shuts me down pretty quick. Okay. She's definitely she's headstrong. So she don't take much advice, but yeah.
That's great. That's a great. Hey man, I know you're busy, so but I want to thank you for joining me here at the pub. Talking whiskey with you is just amazing, man.
Tom, honestly, man, I could do this many, many, many more times with you. I thoroughly love talking whiskey and spirits and distillation. I mean, there's so many topics that we can talk about, and I love what you do, and I love the people you have on, and I can't thank you enough for having me on, and I've really enjoyed this. It's been the hour went quick.
You did. I know. I looked at the clock. Oh my goodness! Because I told you I would try not to keep you more than an hour. I do want to say real quick, though, having said that, I'd like to, of course, our schedules are an issue, but if we can work something out, I'd like to work something out where we can maybe do. Each of us do 2 specific cocktails. So I know we talked about an old fashioned today and a Manhattan. Each of us come with our version of an old fashioned and a Manhattan and see what we got.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I would love that. And I also, it would be a lot of fun is to get so our production crew at the Brewco is just phenomenal. You got John Ludman and Sean and Brad and Bruce. I mean, these guys are just great. Skippy Bryan. It'd be great to do one with all of us.
Oh, I would love to. That would be awesome. Hey, I'm up for that. Anytime you guys got the time, you let me know. I'll make it work.
Okay, that's great. So I'm in on multiple of these. I would love to talk cocktails and
oh yeah,
and my version of both of those are pretty easy and simple.
Really?
So
okay. Well, here's my thing. I think a lot of current so-called mixologists try to make things more complicated than they need to be. Your best cocktails are simple. You need 3 or 4 ingredients max, and that's all you need.
I totally agree with that. The other thing, it's kind of like, the more ingredients, the easier it is to make. The less alcohol, the more ingredients, the wider the cocktail profile happens. It's the same thing with distillation. Honestly, I love bourbon, but most bourbon is the barrel. And so when you find a spirit that has been aged less or not at all, that has a wide profile and a lot of congeners and a full flavor, that's saying something. And so
absolutely.
I totally agree with you. When you can do less is more in the alcohol world, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Brent. I appreciate you joining me out here, man. That was awesome.
Thank you, Tom.
That was a great discussion. That was, man. I don't even know what product I'm looking more forward to now, to be honest with you. But we talked about everything in those barrels. But then when you talked about American single malts, man, that is kind of where I'm going right now. So, man, I want to know the second you put one in a bottle.
Okay, awesome. And also, how you feeling? You're in recovery.
Yeah, actually. So here's the thing. I'm tomorrow will be 5 weeks past surgery date. And I'm already past all of my 8-week goals.
Good.
They told me I'd be on a cane up through 8 weeks, and I'm already off the cane at only 5 weeks.
That's fantastic.
So I'm doing well. I can't bend a lot yet. So my main gig, I do a lot of deliveries and bending and lifting and up and down stairs. I can't do that yet, but I'm gradually building that strength. So I'm hoping about week 10 I'll be able to get back to work again.
Well, that's great. That's good news. I mean, you seem in good spirits, and
I'm completely. This came up in another discussion, or I wouldn't bring it up. But I am completely off all pain meds. I'm not mixing alcohol and opioids. Just so everybody knows.
That's huge. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had issues, not personally, but I've had family members, and I don't know. I'm just always leery of them. So I weaned myself off those as soon as I possibly could.
That's real. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I do want to mention one last comment from Dean Daisy. Says, "Good talk, guys. Thanks." Yeah, I gotta agree, man. This is one of my favorite conversations, man. I appreciate you coming with me.
Man, I'm looking forward to doing it again, my friend.
And you let me know. I know your schedule's crazy, so you let me know the next time you got some free time, and I'll find a way to make it work. I am Tom, the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor wisdom, and all around good guy. Thanks for joining. Hey, Brian, don't jump off right away.